Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to people in other time zones. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit. It's great to be with you. I'm going to be interviewing a very special guest today, Tom Zender. He was the president and CEO of Unity, a spiritual organization with 2 to 3 million members worldwide, and he's held leadership positions at General Electric, Honeywell, and was a senior vice president at the New York Stock Exchange. He is the author of many books, including God Goes to Work, New Thought Paths to Prosperity and Profits, and he mentors, lectures, and more. I'll be welcoming Tom Zender shortly to the program. We're all very excited about today's program. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. We have about 20,000 registered for today's call. Some cannot listen in live, so we send out a recorded link so these people can listen in later. Thank you so much, everyone, for prioritizing time to be here for this important conversation. As always, this call is interactive with each of you, our listeners, so I want to invite you to go ahead and put your questions in the question window on Instant Teleseminar, questions and comments. I promise we'll get to at least several of your questions and comments during the hour. A little about Humanities Team as we get started. In Humanities Team, we see there is only one presence, the divine, and see we are all offspring and expressions of the divine. This means God's love, light, grace, and peace are ours, because there is no separation, and we share the same essence. We don't share this as something academic or intellectual. We believe everyone and everything is a beautiful and sacred face of the divine. Since our founding in 2003, we've done our best to live as one with the divine, each other, and our home. We don't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to feel heavy. We must only do our best. When we talk about oneness with the divine, of course, this is true for all of life, not just humanity. This has repercussions for how we see ourselves, others, and the earth that is our home. This means everyone and everything is sacred and should be treated as such. It also means we're responsible for the world around us because, in truth, it's part of our authentic self, encompassing the whole of the earth. Perhaps there's nothing more important than this, coming to see ourselves as a cell in the body of the divine, the earth, and stepping into a role where we're caring for the earth and the world that we live in. This is important and urgent work. We can certainly see that as we look at the media in mainstream society today. We're advocating personal development that crosses over into all of our roles, including that of partner, parent, and public service, but also institutional change. So we live as one collectively and create a fulfilling, compassionate, and sustainable world. We're certainly going to be talking about all of these things during today's call. If you resonate with our work, we invite you to go to humanitiesteam.org, our website, and reach out to us about projects you'd like to become involved in. Once again, that's humanitiesteam.org with a Y. Okay, please get comfortable as we begin our program. I'm now going to welcome our special guest. Welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit. Tom, it's great to have you with us.
My pleasure, Steve. I'm so happy to be able to join you this morning.
Okay, awesome. Well, as we shared coming up on the call here just a few moments ago, just really exciting to be here with you. It's unusual to meet a person who was a business executive that held all of these senior positions in business that you've held, but also a very deeply spiritual man who, in your case, was the president and CEO of Unity as well. That is a rare combination. So really nice to have you with us. And let's just jump right into questions because there's so much ground that we could cover. And Tom, I thought that one of the things you say is that spirituality is the basis for all successful organizations and the most important asset you have in elevating you and your business to a new level of performance. And I certainly believe that's true, but that's a fairly revolutionary thought. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think we're in a transformative time about that particular subject, Steve. I think an increasing number of people are beginning to understand similarities and some differences about spirituality and religion. I believe that an increasing number of people are understanding that spirituality is a magnetic attraction that draws us together and creates a greater oneness in any and all aspects of our lives, including our business lives, our work lives. And that some aspects of religion can do can cause some separation. Not just religion, but various political ideas, economic ideas, social ideas can create separation. I believe we're living in a time where there's recognition, increasing recognition of the separation and a strong inner spiritual desire for greater oneness. And I believe that we are experiencing that very deeply at this time in history. So to bring spirituality into all aspects of our lives is where we're headed. And that's the work that you do and many other similar organizations, including Unity, do. We are transforming into the greater understanding of our role as spiritual beings, living a human existence at this time.
Yes, it is so true. And, of course, another thing we were sharing just before the call, that there is so much wisdom, certainly in Unity Church and mystical teachings, conversations with God, of course, in miracles, and on and on and on, that disunity actually does not exist, that ultimate reality is unity. And so then the companion thing that's shared is that spiritual illiteracy is a very challenging thing here right now, because to the extent that disunity doesn't exist, that's not something that is well known.
This goes back to a central feature of deep spirituality, in the sense that what we hold in our consciousness is what appears in our manifest lives, our human lives. So over and over again, all of the past and current, the contemporary spiritual teachers keep teaching us and telling us, and we see it in demonstration, that the work begins internally in our consciousness as to how we see our lives and the lives of others. And I believe that it's the collective consciousness that is forming life. So to the extent that each of us reframes our lives in the sense of our inner beingness, then that is projected into the collective consciousness and the collective world in which we dwell. So whether or not we focus on our personal lives, relationships, our physical lives, our careers and work lives, that is all true. And each of us then has, I believe, a spiritual responsibility. And it is part of spiritual literacy, and I love that term. And thank you for introducing it to me, that we learn. There is a learning process involved. But I also believe that there is some spiritual pilot light within us that we can't extinguish. It's always with us by some means, and perhaps it's an act of what we might call grace. That pilot light gets turned up, and we wake up, and then the flame of transformation begins. And it's very, very fortunate for all of us who have had that happen by one means or another. For me, it happened to be Unity, but it could have been a lot of other spiritual paths whereby that happened. So we're very fortunate, and I believe we have a responsibility to pass it along.
Yes, we do, and well said. Yes, that pilot light is always there. It's always within us. It can't be turned off, but it can be turned up through these our own spiritual path, these things that we do on a daily basis that are part of our inner life that nurture that pilot light, which is that divinity, that one presence that is within all of us. I just to go to something personal here, I mentioned, Tom, as we were beginning, the unusual background that you have, where you've had these senior positions with large Fortune 500 companies, some smaller ones also. And then you came over, and earlier here after when the millennium turned, and I think it was around 2003, you became president and CEO of Unity. So you've had one foot in both worlds. Can you tell us a little bit about that. What was, just what was your calling, or what was the epiphany, or what was the thing that really brought you into the spiritual world to such an extent that you were the president and CEO of Unity?
You've just asked my favorite question, Steve. So, I think calling was the right word. It was not something that I sought. It was not in my purview. It wasn't, at least in that part of my consciousness, that I could identify. I was rolling along in the corporate world, as you did, and I was becoming less and less satisfied with it. And also, I was very, very materialistic. I think my pilot light was there. I think I knew it. I had some childhood experiences that we could call spiritual experiences, but I couldn't identify them as such. But I had some tastes along the way of, let me call it mini awakenings, touches and tastes. And so I was aware of that. I clearly was a seeker. I was a spiritual seeker. I was even a spiritual shopper, in the sense that as my dissatisfaction with my life as it was kept growing, I was reading more and more books that I would now call spiritual in their nature by many of the authors that we can identify. And I was going to different churches and temples and ashrams and you name it, and I was sampling it. And I believe I was collecting along the way. It was like a spiritual buffet, and I was loading up my plate. But I was very, very caught in a materialistic world. And I kept seeing that, one more expensive car or suit or whatever was not going to fulfill me. And I think I had an awakening, along with my wife, Wendy, because I think she was at some similar point in time. We happened to be living in Orange County, California at the time. There was a small Unity community there. We were unaware of it. But somewhere in the 1980s, my father had given me a copy of Unity's hallmark publication that's been around for many, many, many years, called The Daily Word. So I started reading The Daily Word, and I really liked it, and it helped me. And one day, Wendy and I looked at each other and said, we need to find a church. And by then, we had become aware that Unity does have centers, communities, churches, whatever you call them. And so one Sunday, we did go to a small Unity church in Tustin, California. And that's when I think the pilot light got turned up. Whatever we heard that day was a hook, and it was a good one. And that community was highly educational in its nature. So we dove in hard. And that's when my major transformation occurred. And then it was actually 2001, the minister saw us after her service, and she had a piece of paper in her hand, and she'd written my name on it, and she wrote a note saying, "Tom, is this you?" Well, it turned out to be a letter soliciting candidates for the next president of Unity. Unity had been founded and run by the Fillmore family since its inception, but the last of the Fillmores wanted to move on with her life and not run the organization anymore. So I went through a couple of phone interviews, and the last interview, the invitation was, well, I had also been to the headquarters, Unity Village, for an interview, and Wendy and I were both saying no. We don't want to leave Southern California for Kansas City, Missouri. This is not for me. This is not my life path, blah, blah. And we were invited to come back. And when I said, Wendy, we should go, she was more resistant than I was. But we did go. We flew there. And I could tell by Wendy's body language this was not necessarily what she wanted to do. But we were in fear of what was to be. And I remember getting out of the car at Unity Village, and Wendy got out, and she looked at me, and she looked around, and she looked at me and said, Tom, if they ask you, you can't say no. So that was the journey, and my job began in September of 2001, 5 days after 9/11, and what a journey. That's a long-winded answer, Steve, but that's what happened.
Wow. That was a divine thing, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
This is how oneness has worked for me, too, this divine thing where my wife, too, was brought in, just as yours was, where Wendy, your wife, was even, as you mentioned, more resistant than you, but the divine, of course, deeply touched her, causing her to say what she said, and then causing you to make the decision you made, and the rest is history, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. I was there for 6 years, and the additional, other than, nonprofits are really businesses. They're just treated differently from an accounting and tax point of view and so forth. But other than the business aspects of being there, we lived on the grounds of Unity Village, which is like a very small community, and with delightful surroundings. But I think we became spiritually saturated by virtue of living there and working there. So the transformation that was begun in Southern California continued pretty deeply and pretty rapidly during our time at Unity Village, and it has since then. So it was an amazing experience for which I'm very, very grateful.
I'll bet. Wow. Let me just mention to listeners again, a lot of times questions pour in at the end of the call, and I can't get to them because we're in a wrap-up mode. So if you have questions or comments for Tom, be sure to put them in the question window on Instant Teleseminar. I know we've got people on the phone as well, and maybe we could figure out a way for people to put up their hand here in a little bit. Let me this is just really intriguing to me, and my life was similar in many ways. Because I was a business person, I was with IBM in the 1980s, and then in January 1st, 1990, I went out with some used furniture and then an executive suite with another guy, started a company called Enterprise Networking Systems, ENS, that was in the business of creating digital communication systems for medium and large-sized companies. And some of the largest companies on the West Coast came to us, the Gap and Esprit and AAA of California and many other organizations. We even were inside Apple, helping them just create their digital platforms, which were bridges and routers and switches and arcane technologies like that supported their campus-wide and global communications. And we were just absolutely in the right place at the right time starting this. It was just as the Internet was being born. And so we went through rapid growth from 2 people to over 170 9 years later. We ended up selling to NEC, the Japanese company, in 1999. But in the course of all of that, just like you, I was really went into a deep spiritual journey. And just as you mentioned, where you said that you became less and less satisfied with what you said, the material world, I lost my passion for business during this time frame. It might sound hard to believe because you've got this rocket of a company. We were winning these Inc. 500 awards and going through massive growth from $0 in 1990 to $75 million in 1999 with all of the employee growth and so on. But it felt like a child's game to me in the latter years of that, because I was looking around this world where nobody wanted to leave today's world to their kids. And this notion of just taking care of financial shareholders, creating financial wealth, growing companies and selling them. I started a second company in there too. Just didn't make sense to me anymore. It felt like I was just a kid playing this silly game on a planet that really was asking for everybody's help. And this message that we are all one with the divine in each other felt to me like the missing message, that wow, this message, it was kind of lost and it was in the closet, but it had been around over the millennia, needed to come out. And so I lost my passion for business. I sold all of my interests, walked away, and then I helped Neil start Humanities team in 2003, and for me, that the rest is history, which is, you were saying you became spiritually saturated. That's my good feeling here, too. One of my rewards, because I talk to speakers like you, Tom, all the time who are sharing their personal stories that are so rich. But let me come back to you. So the rest of the journey, you mentioned you were there for 6 years, but now what, with all of this experience as you were leaving Unity, how are you choosing to spend your time? What are you doing now?
Perfect question. So one of the things that happened during my time at Unity Village was the identification of the intersection, the commingling, the oneness of spirituality in business and the workplace. I couldn't avoid it. I think that was a major lesson that I was being taught while I was there, because there was the business side of running the organization, but there was also the spiritual aspect of it. So when I came away from the Unity experience, I became very involved and interested in spirituality in business, in the workplace, etc. And I wrote a couple of books, one in 2010 that you identified, God Goes to Work, was really about spirituality in business, business ethics, leadership, and so forth. And it was a brief bestseller on Amazon. And then I wrote another book about a year and a half later, 1 Minute Meditations at Work, which is meant to be a little half-page daily reader about spirituality in the workplace. I think we've been taught for decades, if not longer, that, church and state needed to be separated, but I think we also separated spirituality from work, career, business. And what I was finding was, no. Most of us spend most of our waking hours at work, in business, doing something of that nature. And to ignore our spiritual selves, our divine aspect in that environment is not the way to go. So a lot of my work is about spirituality in the workplace. Today, I mentor CEOs here in the Phoenix area. I write a weekly column for the Phoenix Business Journal. I mentor some faculty members and students at Arizona State University that are starting businesses, and a few other things of that kind. So I do employ, certainly, just at least in my own life, my spiritual nature in my work. I also will refer to it when appropriate. For example, one of my CEOs is a Unity person. Well, I can certainly talk to him about spirituality in business in a way that he will absolutely understand. There are others where I don't use the word spirituality, but I will somehow weave something about it into our conversation. The Phoenix Business Journal is very generous. They allow me to use words like spiritual, mystical, karma, and some of those kinds of things in my weekly columns. Not all the time, but I weave it in frequently enough, and they seem to like it. At least they've never told me to stop. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, that my passion, my mission is to transform and create awakenings, however I can do it, in people in the workplace about the importance, the absolute necessity to pay attention to our divine nature in our workplaces, and to whatever extent we can cause it to or allow it to rub off on others is where I'm at.
Amen to that. Well, we'll go a lot deeper on that. Gosh, I wish we had more than an hour. Let me bring in, though, a comment and a question. Big synchronicity here, which is part of this spiritual work, isn't it, Tom? This is from Marge, who you probably know, in Tustin, California. Wow, what a joy to hear this interview with Tom Zender. I was the minister at Unity of Tustin, who handed him that copy of a letter with my handwritten note on it. Tom, is this you? We are truly links in each other's lives. The important thing is recognizing them. Love this interview and love how it works.
So that's Reverend Marge Britt. She was my spiritual teacher at that time. Marge has a doctorate in education, and so she was an extremely good educator, had a lot of classes and courses in that community, experiential in nature. And that's where my spiritual transformation really took place, as I mentioned. So she's been a great jewel and joy in my life.
Well, I'm sure she's saying the same thing back to you here as reflected in her comment. So, Marge, thank you for writing in. I also have this question from Monica in Colorado. It says, I have sold a business a year and a half ago, and I'm now an intuitive reader, Reiki master, teacher, and life coach. I'd like to bring my skills to business also. I am passionate about creating wholehearted businesses. Do you have any advice for how to get started with that? Thank you.
One thing I learned is that I don't believe that people can be force-fed spirituality per se, whether it's in business or any other part of our lives. I think as we're all both students and teachers all of the time, I believe. And when there's an opportunity to assist somebody by anything we would say or write, when they're ready, then that process comes alive and is meaningful. You've heard the saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I believe that's very, very true. So to go back to the question of how to bring spirituality into Monica's work, let's say in a business setting, business context, I would begin to employ it gently in terms of the way I speak, the way I write, the way I behave, my actions, so that I become an irresistible attraction, so that other business people will gravitate to what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what I'm writing. There's a magnetic quality. When we're authentic, when we've woken up spiritually and we become increasingly authentic, we create, I believe, a magnetic attraction that others want. In other words, someone might start asking, well, Tom, where did you learn what you just said? Or why did you write that? Why is your behavior in this workplace the way it is? And then I can begin to ask the questions. But to force feed it, I don't think it works. In fact, I think it backfires. So we have to make ourselves, I'll say, spiritually attractive and available.
Yeah, wonderful. I really love that. And just being the invitation ourselves, but being the invitation through our being, just who we are and how we express, and then making it overt where there's that invitation, where there's that sense of, where's that the desire on another person's part to really go deep. We are blessed here in Humanities Team because our work is on our website. We say, we are all one, let's live that way. So, of course, that's a very overt message. And so the people that come here are attracted to that message, want to talk about it, live it, and even be in community. So that's a real blessing to just have that, to be in a community like that day in, day out, because unless you're in, like in Unity, that when you were in Kansas City, you got to live that way too for 6 years, Tom, and I'm sure you probably have that now too with your wife Wendy there in Phoenix. But it's a blessing to be around people that really relate to this message and that want to deepen their own life in oneness, because they do believe it's ultimate reality. And, of course, if it's ultimate reality, then you want to hold it close, embrace it, and ultimately express it.
Sure.
Let me go deeper into the business context, because, again, it's unusual to have somebody with your business background. We also are in the midst of a conscious business initiative, a focus here in Humanities Team. We have been for about a year and a half. And the reason we got into this focus on conscious business is we realized that, as I mentioned in the introduction here, Tom, as you were coming in, that if we couldn't get to a place of creating conscious business, that we'd be limited in what we can do here on this planet. That on a personal development level, in our own life and with our partner and raising kids and so on, we can go so far. But in the end, our paychecks, our jobs, our economy, all are linked to business. And there are many wonderful businesses that are emerging and that even are large that are outputting wonderful things into the world. But there are whole industries that are outputting things that are creating challenges for us. So we realized we needed to embrace business and just talk about conscious business and create programs that address conscious business. So in this book that you created, this first book here, that God Has a Plan, you share that that you, in your workshops and speeches and things, you talk about how to make a better, more profitable deals in business, how to create what the secret is behind the world's most effective managers, executives, and leaders so that you can become one yourself. Can we talk a little bit about this? I imagine in your coaching, your CEO mentoring, these are some of the kinds of things that you're doing now.
Sure. I believe that it goes back to the root of this conversation, and that is our identification with our spirituality, with our oneness. So let's talk about a couple of leaders and companies that manifest what I will call good, where I believe there is an intention to create some level of goodness for a consumer base. And these are always imperfect examples. But two that I will use are, first of all, Apple, and in particular Steve Jobs, who has been largely castigated by the press and various media and so forth as having been a mean, awful, terrible kind of person. And what we know was that he was highly creative, highly innovative, highly charged, and driven to do his very, very best to create the best conceivable products and services that he could in the face of some significant competition and odds. What most people don't know about Steve Jobs is that he was a profound meditator. He spent some time in India to learn whatever particular form of meditation he learned, and he practiced it. And I believe that that was a spawn for his inner drive of innovation and creativity, and that it bled off to the people that were around him. So the whole organization became charged to be creative, innovative. A friend of mine was one of his CFOs and told me that when it was time for my friend to retire from the company, there was a party, and Steve hugged him and cried because of my friend leaving. And my friend had done some great things for the company. So that showed what I would call a spiritual side of the man that most of us don't understand, and his legacy does continue. Can we point out faults with Apple and its products and so forth? Yes. Of course, we can always do that anywhere, but we can also look at the good side of it and say there was something spiritually at work in the founder and the guy who helped create Apple. I think another one might be Google. I know less about the two founders, Page and Brin, but I know something that happened is their 107th employee, and they now have, 30,000 or more employees worldwide. They're an immensely successful company along with Apple. But the 107th employee happened to be a Buddhist. And he went to the two founders and said, we should learn and practice meditation, and here's why. And they said yes. So from that point forward, that particular employee started conducting classes in how to meditate, not from any religious point of view, but more from a spiritual and secular point of view. Google even created meditation rooms where their employees could take a break, go hang out, get quiet, and meditate for a while. And you look at the same phenomena of a company who puts out a stream of exceptional products and is a well-thought of company. I won't go so far as to draw examples from the dark side, but any of us can recite names of companies where we think, they could do it differently, they could do it better. But at least we have any number of examples in front of us of what happens when the founders, the leaders, and others embrace spirituality of some form in the workplace.
Yeah, wonderful. And I read the biography on Steve Jobs, and it shared of this that he went to the We Are One meditation place in Oregon there near the school that he was attending, and his trip to India, and of course he was a vegan or vegetarian, and yes, so that there was this deeply spiritual person that isn't talked about as much. And also Google, they're quite present at Wisdom 2.0, which is based right there in the Bay Area. And this person that you mentioned, I don't remember his name, this 107th employee, he's also quite prominent on LinkedIn and things. You can see him with the programs that they have there in Google. So those are wonderful examples. Let me bring in a question here from a listener. This is Joan in Tulsa. And Joan says, I run a fairly decent-sized bakery in Tulsa. Spirituality is part of our business, and everyone is required to observe 1 minute of silences throughout the day. Even those who were hesitant at first came around and end up saying how grateful they are for those silences. We don't tell anyone what they are to do except to be silent. I find this method works best for my business. After all, we are the bakers of the bread, which will later be broken. Love this
Outstanding.
interview.
I love it.
Thank you, Joan, for writing in. Awesome. And that is a perfect lead-in, because the other thing that you share in this about this book, God Has a Plan, is you talk about these simple steps that one can take to prepare your organization, no matter the size, to take advantage of the wondrous prospects that will emerge in this new economy, which is the spiritual business economy. Can you talk about what some of these simple steps might be, Tom?
I think that one caveat is that the impetus to take steps to increase spiritual awareness, spiritually based activity within an organization, the leader or the leaders need to be the instigators. And when I use the word leader, I don't necessarily mean that it's always the CEO or the board chair or some other high-ranking executive. We are all leaders at some level. Even individual contributors can exhibit leadership qualities where we are the movers and the shakers, and we take responsibility, we take action, we cause movement, and we behave in a way that is that magnetic attraction, the irresistible attraction for other people. The steps that I see are many of the spiritual practices that so many of us have learned, and again, it doesn't have to be overt, but it can be suggested, it can be allowed, it can be facilitated. So certainly meditation is one example, and I think Joan's Minute of Silence is a form of a meditation. A prayer. Nobody can really stop me from my office desk in any role that I've ever had from just stopping and praying in the way that I pray. And I don't have to be out loud. I don't have to stand on my desk to do it. I don't have to invite others to come into my office or cubicle to do it with me. I can simply pray while I'm on the job. Bless people. Bless situations. I can read. I can Even before I went to Unity Village, I kept a copy of the Daily Word at my office desk, and I could pull it out and read it. People can have their Bible in their desk and pull it out and read it during a break or whatever. A gratitude journal, beautiful at the end of the day, of what I'm grateful for about my work, my job, whatever, today. And those, I think, are the simple, easy steps that we can take to amplify our spiritual presence in our workplaces.
Awesome. These are simple steps indeed. Thank you for that, Tom. Let me mention this conscious business initiative that I talked about a little earlier. That was undertaken with there were actually 4 NGOs that created this Conscious Business Declaration. If you go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, you can see. Make sure you go to the home page. Don't just read the declaration. Read a little bit about what these 4 NGOs are up to. Humanities Team being one of them, but also the Club of Budapest, based out of Europe. The Goy Peace Foundation, which is based out of Japan, and then the Fowler Center for Business out of Case Western Reserve University, and Humanities Team. These are the 4 NGOs that created it. And there are lots of simple steps in there, and all of the steps together as well. There are only 7 principles there. It took us a year to create that, working together, because 4 NGOs, and with these different cultures that are all over the world, you're going to have a lot of different thoughts about things. But together we reduced the things that we thought were most important for conscious business, which is to say spiritual business. Conscious business means that we're coming from this place of oneness, this single reality where we're all interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. That is shared explicitly in the Declaration. And one of the things in there that's discussed is financial transparency. I'll just share an example of what I did when I was in Silicon Valley with that one. There's something that's been around now for a while, probably 25 years or so, called open book management. If you Google it, you can read about it.
Sure.
And in open book management, Tom, you're probably familiar with it, Rob.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so we employed it. It was a challenge because a lot of people didn't take accounting and finance in college, and reading financial statements and understanding them is, it takes a little bit of education just for everybody to be able to read the financial statements together. But we implemented this, and we put our salaries, everything, complete transparency in the financial statements, and we'd review them with all of the staff, and then we created bonuses for creating goals together. And it's funny. We did a program yesterday with our founder, Neil Donald Walsh. We were talking a little bit about this, and people sometimes think when you create financial transparency like this, oh my God, you can't do that. You can't publish salaries and things. But our experience was just the opposite. As we were publishing all of our financial information, including salaries, it created this bond and this trust that was amazing, and just deepened this connection between us, this trust, and this. Of course, there was we weren't using words like God in the organization, but people would often come up to me and say, "Were you like a priest before you?" Because there's something a little spiritual, about you. It's this thing of of what you were saying of just is to the best of our ability, each of us in our own way, embodying the message, And boy, it does create trust, and there's love and compassion and service and all these wonderful things that, of course, make the business so successful, which then allows you to pay higher salaries and you create tighter relationships with your vendor partners and your clients, and the whole thing just is this virtuous circle. I'm sure you must share this with your clients that you're probably helping them build their business and to create financial wealth, even though that's not your primary objective, because spirituality in business makes a business much more successful, doesn't it, Tom?
It does, and I believe that the financial wealth comes as a byproduct of conducting good business, conscious business. I think that the core word that I would apply to what you just described about financial transparency and everything that you and others have done around it is authenticity. When we have woken up or are waking up, we become more authentic. And when we're more authentic, the byproducts of our authenticity, being true to our inner selves, to our divine nature, trust is created. Ethics become important. It's ultimately our behaviors that emanate out of our spiritual beliefs and practices and principles. That's, I believe that the authenticity is, you can call it integrity, you can call it authenticity, but we become our true selves and we express it in our daily lives, absolutely, including business. So the bonding and the trust that you created by doing that, you were being honest. You were being honest about yourselves. You, again, you created that magnetic quality of, hey, Steve, there must be, were you a priest or a minister? There's something spiritual about you. Well, yeah, and it was visible by your behaviors. So one of the things I do with my clients and in my writings and others is I do spend some time with ethics. And what does that mean? And how do you live it? It also stems from always do the right thing. And we know inherently when we're awake what the right thing is. We also know what the wrong thing is. So I believe when we seek and follow our inner guidance, which is the divine voice within us, we will do the right things. We will create better work environments. We will be more ethical business people. We will build trust with our employees and our customers. And when it's time to owe up to a mistake that we make, when we owe up, when we admit our mistakes, even publicly, and say, hey, that was not right for us to do, and here's how we're going to repair the damage we created. That builds even more trust. We have plenty of examples in recent history of corporations that messed up and tried to hide it, and the price has been extremely heavy. Volkswagen is a current example. On the other hand, we had honest admissions by Gerber Baby Foods and Tylenol and others where there was an error, but they owed up quickly in the public eye and did what they could as fast as they could to repair the damage. And they are held in higher esteem because of that.
Yes, they are. So true, and I love that, just the focus on authenticity and then the financial success is a byproduct of that. Absolutely. If we had gone down this path of, well, we hear there's more financial wealth, in conscious business, and we're going to pursue it for the financial wealth, we would not have been successful. Instead, in fact, the whole reason we started the business in the first place is I was with IBM, and IBM was a great company. It still is. In the 80s, it was really at its zenith. But it was about climbing the ladder there, and you kind of have to work your boss and all of these things. And through the programs I took at IBM, I realized I was in the profile of an entrepreneur. And so I started casting around for what company might I start, where I could create a great company. We were not starting a business to create financial wealth at all. Me and my partner were starting a company just to build a great company in Silicon Valley. And again, we were just absolutely in the right place at the right time. And we attracted people like ourselves that wanted to build a great company, and therefore, and it did become a great company. I'll mention the second company, which I started, which was a consulting company also in the same space. We brought in venture capital to fund it, an enormous amount of venture capital. Venture capitalists joined our board. I hired an outside CEO. I remained the chairman. But this one went very terribly wrong, and it was because it was all about creating financial wealth. And I wasn't able, even as the chairman, I wasn't able to turn that switch off. In fact, I remember one of our leaders during a kickoff program saying, "Why are we here?" Well, you know why we're here. It's about the money. And I just thought, oh my God,
right.
we will fail. We will fail. Everybody I know that is in business to make money will not make money.
No, it's true. I have a high hope, I guess. One spiritual caveat is there is no hope. There only is what is. But stepping a bit beyond that, I'm noticing, and I may be alone, that I think I'll use the term younger people without, branding them as millennials or any other, XYZ group, whatever. My sense is that an increasing number of younger people, not only in the United States, but I think Western Europe and some other places, are becoming more altruistic about their work. I think that they are less interested in money. They want enough to live a decent life, but the majority are not looking to get rich per se. Some certainly are, and they do. But I think so many of them are more geared to doing their best work, creating great products and services for humanity, being honest, being authentic. And I see it in their material lives. They are not dressed so finely. They don't drive necessarily expensive automobiles. They live in modest homes and places. I may be kidding myself, and that could be wishful thinking, but it's just a trend I'm seeing. And I think part of the reason is that same group of younger people is largely experiencing, seeing, and understanding spirituality as a part of their lives. Many of them become Buddhists. And I think that they probably have experienced religion in some form that is causing them to say, that may be for others, but it's not for me. And I think they are consciously and sometimes unconsciously following more of a spiritual path. I guess that's a dream, a hope, and perhaps a trend that I would like to see persist.
Yes, we see that too, Tom, that the so-called millennials are less interested in material success. And as you mentioned, you can't paint with a white brush. There's some that are where material success is it. But as taken as a whole, as people talk about these trends, and in our own experiences with there are plenty of millennials here in Boulder, and around the country for that matter, and you get to know them. And I see this also. Just their whole life is really more what it's about than a job. And of course, when I was growing up, I'm 59, so and I got my first job out of college in '79, and a lot of people were signing up, just giving their lives away for the paycheck then. And I had my own experience with that, where I won't have a chance to share what that was about, but I had my sister died, and there was a whole process I went through in her death, or I should say transition, because there's no such thing as death. That really, really awakened me. It was part of my own awakening process. But Tom, so this is a hopeful note here as we're coming up on the close. I'm going to need about 3 minutes to close. That gives us about 4 minutes here right now. So as we look to the future, as we're talking optimistically and hopefully, and with conscious business, which is spirituality in the workplace, what do you see? Is it coming together, and what invitations might you share with our listeners here related to this?
One signal to me, Steve, is the emanation of your organization in relationship to similar organizations and a collaboration among these like-minded organizations that are addressing, for lack of better words, spirituality in business, ethics, authenticity, transparency, and all the words we've used. And so it becomes increasingly possible for any of us to participate in any number of these kinds of organizations. Another one that I'm somewhat familiar with, that I'm sure you've heard of, is conscious capitalism. And that was started from a similar vein of wanting to create more honesty, more ethics, a higher level of consciousness in business. And it uses the similar term, conscious capitalism. And it was started by several people John Mackey, who formed Whole Foods. Another one is Doug Rowell, who was the longtime CEO of Trader Joe's. And I'll do a very quick story that Marge Britt will identify. One of Marge's spiritual classes, kind of a basic spirituality class, was conducted by a lady by the name of Barbara Hart. And I would go to Barbara's classes weekly, and I noticed she always brought Trader Joe's goodies to her class. And I finally asked her, do you ever buy anything other than Trader Joe's? She said, well, I don't have to. And I said, well, what? She said, I get all this stuff for free. I said, how? She said, my son is Doug Rowell, president of Trader Joe's. And so, and Doug is still at it. He's creating an organization to provide, if not free, very low-cost food to people who need it in the Boston area. So his mission of conscious business, conscious capitalism continues. So I think the answer to your question is, for those who are interested, they can join your organization, they can participate, they can do any number of things with others. They can also form their own groups that represent what we're describing here and what we would like to see more of in our world. So that would be my advocacy, and to practice spiritual principles. If nothing else, practice spiritual principles in our work days. It rubs off.
Yes, it does, and I love you've brought around several times during this conversation, Tom, to really create your own spiritual practice, be an embodiment of it, an expression of it, and that living invitation is then what you call that, this magnetism, this thing that's bringing people to you, and it really does all start with our own spiritual practice, our own inner life, because otherwise we're just talking heads here, where we're talking about intellectual concepts, and people won't feel the truth of these concepts in the conversation or in our life. So, Ben, this has just been awesome. Just quickly, what the website can people go to, Tom, to follow you and your work?
My website is simply my name, Tom Zender, no punctuation, TomZender.com.
Okay, TomZender.com. Thank you. And Kathy in Palos Heights says, Steve, this is an excellent interview. Thank you. Given me lots of information. So thank you, Kathy. I've really enjoyed it, too. Wow, Tom, just really so many pearls of wisdom, also a heart energy, and the thing that you've been talking about, this magnetism, I feel it in you. So thank you for just spending this hour with us. It's been amazing. Let me get to some announcements. I'm going to come back and thank you one more time, Tom, before we close the call. I mentioned these 4 NGOs that created the Conscious Business Declaration. If you resonate with that, you'd like to see more conscious business in your community, go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org. And if those principles resonate, sign that. We'll be taking that to the United Nations, all signatures, to create a Conscious Business Day. For that matter, become an ambassador for conscious business in your community. We need more conscious business worldwide. Also related to this, we are in the midst of this conscious business initiative here in Humanities Team now. We've created a curriculum so that we can train and certify conscious business engineers or conscious business agents. We're doing our last webinar here today. It's a live one in a few hours. It starts at 12 o'clock Pacific time, and it's with Ken Wilber. Alan Watkins. Alan Watkins is the CEO of Complete Coherence. It's based out of the United Kingdom. I think people probably know who Ken Wilber is. He's the most amazing philosopher and created this whole integral framework. And then Elizabeth Saw-Torres, who's this biologist that's based in Hawaii. Those 3 will be my guests during the webinar. It's at 12 Pacific time. It's live today. And I invite you to come to that. We're going to be just doing a lot of question and answer for people because it's the 7th webinar as we're closing out this whole discussion of conscious business, and as we're coming up on this new training and certification program that starts on Monday the 19th, which is this coming Monday. If you go to livinginone.com, it's an easy way to sign up for that webinar. You'll see the coming programs there, and the third one is Tom. You'll see Tom Zender there. The one that comes up next is the one today, the September 15th program with these 3 leaders that I mentioned. You can register there, and you can get a link. That does include video, so you get a link so that you can watch that program and bring your questions to the program. I also want to get to other upcoming programs here that you might want to check out. A week from today, Thursday, the 22nd of September, at 9 o'clock Pacific, I'll be interviewing Emmanuel Itier. He's an award-winning movie producer and director. This is part of our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life program, where we focus on a particular sphere of life each month. The focus in September is media, and Emmanuel Itier makes amazing documentaries and movies that bring in the whole paradigm of oneness. So be sure to join us for that, 9 o'clock Pacific time. Then a week later, on Thursday, September 29th at 8:30 Pacific time, we'll be doing a 90-minute program with Patricia Cota-Robles, who's just an amazing leader in this area of spirituality. She's based out of New Mexico and travels all over the U.S. She's incredible. That's Thursday, September 29th at 8:30 Pacific time, a 90-minute program that will include a question and answer with her. You can go to livinginone.com to learn about all of the upcoming programs. Of course, all of our programs are free. We also send out a little thank you note with a replay link, good for 48 hours free listening. So if you go to livinginone.com, you can get on that list. Also, I want to mention Global Oneness Day. Tom and I talked about it very briefly during this conversation. It is our Earth Day for an Awakened Humanity. It's always on October 24th. This year, that's a Monday. There's an incredible program there. We're going to be using the Amplifield program this year, or platform rather, and Amplifield was created for healing and meditation and prayer. The acoustics are amazing. So that's also a free program. If you go to globalonenesssummit.org, and there are 3 S's in globalonenesssummit.org, or you can just Google Global Oneness Day, go to the site, check it out. Deepak Chopra is our honorary chairman this year. You'll hear him share, and Iyanla Van Zandt and Michael Bernard Beckwith, many of the scientists, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart, Greg Braden, Dean Radin, many incredible leaders, Neil Donald Walsh. So be sure to check that out. It's time that the Earth did become awake, and so this program, which now is in its 7th year, is important. Be sure to register for that if that appeals to you. I want to come back and thank you, Tom Zender, for being here again today. Thank you so much. Also, my colleagues, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Monica Augustine, thank you. All the listeners, last, definitely not least, thank you for being here for this hour-long program. And in closing, I want to invite everyone on the call to really live as one with the divine and each other. This is ultimate reality, and this is one of the best ways to spread the invitation of oneness. It's how we'll create this world that we've all dreamed about and envisioned. As we know, and as we talked about on this program, we already are all one. So let's embody it. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in a few hours here during this Conscious Business program with Ken Wilber, Elizabeth Sartoris, and Alan Watkins. See you in a few hours or next week when we're back on the air. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Take care.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, look forward to being in touch, Tom.